Hey guys, I've got a couple comments over my last few videos asking what to do when you're about to go out of range or you have been out of range in your pool, or of course how to set ranges to begin with so that way you can structure them so you don't go out of range and you can maximize your earning potential. So we're going to dive into everything related to ranges today. I'm going to be using metrics to kind of analyze things, and we're going to start off with Ethereum to USDC. Now, real quickly, before I go deeper, I'm just going to say Metrics V4 is launching live on May 26th, and we're hosting a free live training that shows you how to evaluate any pool in less than 10 minutes to determine if it's a good fit for your portfolio and use AI to make the process easier. The link to RSVP to the free live training is going to be at the top of the description, so go ahead, put your name on the list, and claim the launch bonuses on the live. So diving straight into Ethereum to USDC, the first thing that we need to do is obviously set our range. So let's go ahead and go into the assumption that we're kind of diving into this pool for some income, right? We want to generate a little bit of this APR over here. We want probably something along the lines of 20%. Usually when I'm selecting ranges, I'm looking at a various amount of different factors. Not only am I looking at the APR, which actually isn't the most important metric to me, I am also looking at the asset ratio as well as the overall range size. Those are a couple different things as well. Now, typically what I'll do is I'll look at the volatility, which is currently at 3.44%. That's telling me on average about how much it can move every single day. And when I deploy into a pool, I want to make sure that ultimately I can capture the daily volatility, meaning that my range is going to be at least 4%, like plus 4%, minus 4%. And the reason why is because daily volatility is around 3.4%. So just to show you for context, let's set our min price to minus 4%, and let's set our max price to plus 4% right over here, right? And ultimately, if we take a look at this position over here, and we just measure something, if we were to move down right over here, let's just say, one second, we're going to go from current price all the way down to our bottom range. You can see that's about what each candlestick is equal to. That's the volatility right there. We can only capture one candlestick's worth of volatility, which in this case scenario, one candlestick is 1 day. So rather, what I would do in this case scenario is not just set it to 4%. I'd actually like to set it to a little bit broader than that. Because again, I don't want to just capture 1 day and then instantly be kicked out of range. Me personally, I like to be in range for at least a month or so, meaning that this has to be significantly broader. So I would probably estimate this to be around 3 times the volatility number. So at least minus 12%, plus 12% as a starting factor. Again, these are starting factors. And when we look over here now, you can see it actually captures a lot of the data ever since February 1st of 2026. So that's February, March, April, and about half of May. That right there is 3.5 months of data that it's capturing, staying in range in this case scenario at least 95% of the time. There's a couple times where we wicked out of range, but we came back in pretty quickly, and we're capturing the overall trend, which is what we want in a range. So now that we've set minus 12 plus 12, it's time for some fine tuning. Now, the fine tuning that we do is based typically off of asset ratios. So in other words, I need to determine what my stance in the market is. Am I bullish? Am I bearish? If I'm bullish, then I'm going to want more Ethereum. If I'm bearish, I'm going to want more USDC. And that's because in something like Ethereum to USDC, as the market's moving up, you are selling your Ethereum into USDC. As the market's moving down, you are using your USDC to buy Ethereum. So it's like a dollar cost average in, dollar cost average out strategy, basically. So again, having that market stance helps us to determine how much of each asset we want to put up, because if we are bullish, we want to put up more Ethereum. That way we have more to sell. And if we are bearish, we want to put up more USDC. That way we have more USDC to obviously dollar cost average into Ethereum, and we can lower our cost basis more. Now, you can adjust these ratios by simply adjusting min and max prices. So in this case scenario, I'm a little bit bearish. I want to buy Ethereum on the way down. I don't think, we're going to tank tomorrow, but at the same time, the trend's telling us that, we're going back down. So my min price, I'm actually going to move down even further. I'm not going to adjust my max price yet. I'm just adjusting my min price. And you can see the effect of that. As I do that, I'm slowly adjusting that asset ratio right over here until I get to my desired ratio. And typically, it's going to be around 60 to 65%. So I'll probably say something along the lines of minus 20%, plus 12% or so. And then the next thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is start to refine my yield estimate, because this range to me looks pretty solid. I think I'd be comfortable deploying my capital in here. I need to ensure that this APR that's being displayed over here is actually accurate and in line with what I will get in this position. So I do that by looking over here at this liquidity distribution chart. Now, there's a couple different ways to interpret this. If we just zoom in right here, this is the current price. Now, on the current price, there is $308,000 of liquidity. In other words, if we deploy our capital into this pool right now, we are going to earn based on trading activity around the current price, because how this kind of pays out is it pays out based on your share of the tick that the fees are collected on. In other words, if there was, say, $1,000 of fees collected on this price point, and I make up for 1% of the liquidity here, I get 1% of the fees, so I get 1% of $1,000. If there was, let's just say, a lower amount of liquidity, like there is over here, 110K of liquidity, so this time I make up for 3% of the fees over here. Well, any fees collected on this specific price point, I get 3% of. Again, and these are dynamic. It adjusts simply because, A, fees are always adjusting because there's always different amounts of volume every single day. And then B, this liquidity distribution chart kind of tapers off. You could see there's a lot of liquidity around the current prices, but as we get to these outlier prices, there's now less liquidity. And people are depositing, withdrawing, and stuff like that. So we always have to factor that in. But in this case scenario, our calculation method is set to current price, which is kind of what I would use in this case, because everything around the current price is about the same. But we can choose to use the average. In other words, what it'll do is it'll look at our range, which is essentially from here all the way over here, and then it will average out, the 84K with the 97K with the 295K with the 312K, and it will average out all those different prices to kind of find an average for the overall pool that we make up of. But in this case scenario, that's going to skew our results, because take a look over here. If we do average liquidity, it's now 24%. But if we just simply do current liquidity, it's 14%. So which one's right? Well, if we assume that we're going to dive in right now and we're going to generate returns based on current trading activity, we're going to want to use current, because there's plenty of prices around here. You can even view it over on this chart where there is lots of liquidity. So it just makes more sense to use that. And then the second thing is our yield estimate. How long do we want to estimate over? In other words, we're looking at the past 7 days, which factors in the past 7 days of volume. So that's about right over here or so, right? Well, I want to look back a little bit further and see consistent volume. So I'd look at 30 days or so. And then ultimately, my APR is going to slightly adjust. Now you can see it's about 9.3%. Now, with that being said, considering that this APR is 9.3%, I wouldn't want to deploy into this pool strictly for cash flow. If my goal was cash flow or to generate some decent return, I'm not going to get it here, at least in this one. I could analyze this across multiple exchanges, networks, fee tiers, and really find the best one, and I probably would get something like 20 to 25% or so, which would be a lot more solid. We won't dive into that in today's video. However, the other thing that I need to factor in is the actual functionality of the pool. Remember, this buys Ethereum on the way down, sells it on the way up. So if I'm lending or borrowing and then I'm using that borrowed capital to deploy into this pool, well, then ultimately I have a little strategy in itself right there. Another thing is what happens when we go down out of range, right? That's where we really have to look at the fundamentals of the pool. I mean, take a look. If Ethereum falls to something like 1650, ultimately, I'm now sitting in 15.33 Ethereum. I started with about 4.88 Ethereum. So again, it depends on your goals. People would ask, well, do I exit this pool, which is now in full Ethereum, swap some of the ETH into USDC? And the answer is no, because what you're effectively doing there is you're probably buying Ethereum at an average price of around, say, 1900, right? And then you're exiting the pool now that you have, 15.33 Ethereum at around $1,900, and you're selling it at 1687 or 1650, right, into USDC. So you're buying at 1900 and then you're selling at like 1650. That doesn't really make sense, right? You're selling too early, and you're essentially buying high and selling low in that case scenario, which you don't want to do. So rather in this case scenario, if I was running like a more blue chip flywheel strategy, which is something that I've covered on the channel a couple times, I would take that Ethereum and I would park it into something like Ethereum to wrap Bitcoin, or Ethereum to hype, or even rotate into some other market exposed assets. But the point is, we don't want to just swap it and sell it for USDC. If we're going to swap it, we'd want to swap it into an asset that's performing similar and can go up a similar amount, which is where we dive into, again, one of those other pools that has 2 crypto assets in it. Or we could take all of this Ethereum and just add it as collateral over on the lending market if we were running a lending borrowing strategy. So that's another thing that you have to evaluate when it comes to your ranges. Now, when it comes to, again, like deciding, do I rebalance if I go out of range? Do I rebalance before? It really depends on your strategy. In a case like this, what I'm doing is I'm lending out assets. I'm lending out Ethereum, Bitcoin. I'm borrowing, stablecoin, and then I'm parking those stablecoins and stuff like ETH USDC and BTC USDC predominantly in the stablecoin when I start. So the goal is to dollar cost average on the way down, meaning I would want to go out of range. I would want it to go out of range so that way I could execute on the full dollar cost average. But if I was running my strategy, say hype to Ethereum, which I'm also running in my portfolio, let me go ahead and show you that. This one, I would want to stay in range for as long as possible. And right now, it actually just wicked out of range recently, so I'm kind of waiting 48 hours or so before I make any adjustments. I need to make sure that I'm making an adjustment not based on reactive emotions, but based on data and based on what's currently happening in the market. But this position is meant to generate income, and that income is meant to outweigh impermanent loss. So it's a different strategy altogether. The goal here is not to go out of range to execute on the dollar cost average, but rather to produce as much income as possible. So we wouldn't want to go out of range in this case scenario. We'd want to rebalance before, like in an area somewhat like this, or once we got out of range, we'd want to see if there's chance for recovery, which typically there is. And then after that chance for recovery is when we go and execute a rebalance, considering that we now have the data that, hey, price goes down here, it goes out of range. If we just simply look at, say, this trend over here, there's always typically a recovery period, at least in this case scenario of this pool. Goes down, boom, recovery period. Goes down, and next we would typically see a recovery period back in range. That's where I'll execute my rebalance. But yeah, this is exactly how you select ranges. You determine when you want to rebalance. Again, if you guys would like me to go into more detail, feel free to let me know down below in the comment section. But hopefully this video was informative for you guys. And if it was, drop a like. Subscribe notifications turned on. And again, put your name on the list for the free live training on Metrics V4 on May 26th. I'll see you guys there. Peace.